Yo, what up? Welcome to the Week 10 Avenger League preview. I'm gonna try to do less this week, and probably is not gonna happen. I think I'm already at 4. Well, there's another one. 5. I'm gonna need to hire an editor to do an counter. But anyway, let's start this week like we do every week. We're gonna start with the rankings, how they moved, how they shifted, which is really not a lot. So top 3 didn't move. Raleigh, even though he took his first loss to Cameron, still sitting at the top at 8-1, leading in points. We know where that is. Charlie also took a pretty brutal loss to Trevor, which I did predict, but neither here nor there. Charlie's still sitting in second and 6-3. Also at 6-3, losing on the tie break is Cameron. Myself still sitting in 4th place at 5-4 with the second fewest amount of points. We have Andrew jumping ahead of Wade in the little 4-5, 5-4 kind of just bunch there. So Andrew's in 5th, first person outside of the playoffs if they were to start today. Tim also jumps Wade, now firmly back in the playoff picture, which I do believe actually he lost to both myself and Andrew. So kind of behind the 8 ball there, but now does have the head-to-head against Wade. Wade now in 7th place, also at 4-5. Then we have our 3-6 high-scoring crew at John and Trevor, and then still bringing up the rear at 1-8 after losing to myself is Ashley. So jumping over to the waiver wires, a lot of weird injuries kind of came out today actually. Kyler with a hamstring, Matt Stafford with a weird concussion, Mike Evans missed practice, Jonathan Taylor still limited, which that wasn't this week, that's been every week. A little bit inside. So going down the pickups this week, I picked up Trevor Lawrence off of the Kyler Murray news. We have John picking up Greg Dulcich, the tight end out of Denver, who's had a pretty good start to his career, the rookie. I picked up Rondale Moore just to kind of try to get some help at wide receiver. I don't like it, but it's there. Trevor picked up Chase Claypool. Raleigh picked up Jimmy G to fill in for Lamar's bye week. Charlie picked up Daniel Jones to fill in for Joe Burrow's bye week. And then we had Tim pick up Dalton Schultz because he needs more tight ends apparently. Then we had Trevor going for Mecole Hardman, who's had a pretty good couple of weeks in a row. A lot of scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's 11, 26, and 16. Had a pretty hot stretch here. Looking to capitalize on that a little bit. And then we had, that was actually it. I mean, there's, I don't go over kickers and defenses because they're kickers and defenses, but as far as actual players, that's how it shakes out. So jumping right into the games. And so everybody but Riley can skip this one because we're going to start with Raleigh, who is playing Wade. So Wade, maybe listen up to, or maybe don't, just depending on how you want your day to go. But looking at it, we do have Jimmy G. Just mentioned it, filling in for the bye week of Lamar Jackson. And the big thing here, Raleigh's got a couple Qs on the board, couple questionables on the board. Mostly, namely Ezekiel Elliott, the running back, Aaron Jones, also the running back, in case anyone doesn't know who Zeke and Aaron Jones are. Then Mike Evans, nursing, I believe it's his ribs? Yeah, ribs and ankle, was limited in practice today. Zeke is obviously the biggest question mark of the 3. He did miss last week, actually last 2 weeks, I believe. They were on a bye last week, so technically he did not play the last 2 weeks, but did miss the game against Chicago. Kind of looking to try to get back. Looks like he took some reps in practice, was kind of limited, but we'll see what happens. I mean, Tony Pollard looked explosive, but they're paying Zeke a lot of money. And Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones, so he'll probably get his touches, but how explosive is he going to be? Green Bay does stink, so their defense is supposed to be good, but they're not. So we'll kind of monitor the Zeke situation. If he doesn't play, Riley may be going double Green Bay running backs again with A.J. Dillon because he doesn't really have another option. Gus Edwards on a bye and questionable. And those are the only 2 wide receivers he's got on the bench, A.J. Dillon and Gus Edwards. And even more of a question mark if Aaron Jones doesn't go. He was limited, so if he's out, you have to start AJ Dillon, and then what do you do with Zeke? So that a lot of question marks there where Raleigh could end up having to start some scrub off the waivers. Luckily for him, He's got the wide receivers to pick up the slack with D Hop, Cup, and maybe Evans. But either way, I mean, you're throwing somebody in the flex. The Evans, I think the Evans, if Evans misses, that's where he gets into some of the most trouble, especially if the other two running backs are limited, because that really just runs out of options at that point. You know, Jamar Chase still out on a bye, Gus Edwards still questionable on a bye. I mean, Deontay Johnson, I guess, is your flex at that point. So good luck with that. And flipping over to Wade's team here, Justin Fields had just the breakout game of breakout games. His last 3 weeks of scoring 23, 26, and 42 last week, setting the regular season record for rushing yards by a quarterback, 178 yards and a touchdown. He also threw for 123 yards and somehow 3 touchdowns off of that. Big thing was no interceptions. Justin Fields has looked good the last couple weeks, and he's playing just a piss poor Detroit defense. So expect a shootout there, expect lots of points, and expect Justin Fields to probably lose, but still just put up incredible numbers for some reason again. We've talked about it here. Wade is going with for the Dolphins double dip with most certain Wilson. And it would actually be very funny if Wade has to start both Dolphins running backs and Riley is forced to start both Green Bay running backs, and I don't know. It's just real funny to me if we just have the two double up on the same game. Justin Jefferson, we all know what Justin Jefferson is. Does get a real tough matchup with Buffalo this week, but it's Justin Jefferson. The problem with here is you get Kirk playing at a 325 semi. Oh no, that game is at noon. I just assumed that would be a 325 game. That's at noon. The Vikings might be upsetting the Buffalo Bills. Also Josh Allen's questionable. That was one I forgot to mention when discussing the weird injuries. Josh Allen has a UCL tear. The Matt Stafford injury, the baseball injury. So another thing to keep an eye on there, and then I mean definitely the Vikings could just weasel their way into 8-1 if Case Keenum is forced to start there. John did bring up a good point though. Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs revenge game in that one. But getting back to Justin Jefferson, Noon Kirk. We know what Noon Kirk is. Noon Kirk is awesome. And so the chains will be rocking if they can take down Buffalo in Buffalo. Devontae Smith on Monday night. He's very, Devontae Smith is kind of hit or miss. Obviously AJ Brown is the alpha over there. Wade doesn't really have any other good options for wide receivers. Actually, he doesn't have a wide receiver on his bench. He does have one in the flex, where I guess you could try to put in a running back in the flex spot and move Jacoby Myers into your wide receiver lineup. But yeah, Devontae Smith's last 2 games, 4.8 against Pittsburgh and 3.2 against Houston. AJ Brown scored 4 touchdowns across those 2 games. So he's obviously just dominating. Even in week 6 where he had over 10 points, he only had 44 yards. He just happened to get in the end zone. So really hasn't had a solid yardage or touches type week since week 5 against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals defense fucking stinks. The last time he went over 100 yards was in week 3 when he went for 169 and a touchdown, and everybody thought that he was going to be kind of have his second breakout year. Just really hasn't come to fruition there. And I hate it. I love Devontae Smith, but oh no, never mind. Jacoby Myers is on a bye, so Wade literally has 0 other option. Yikes. That sucks. Sorry, Wade. Evan Ingram is in the tight end slot. Mark Andrews still nursing an injury, but either way he's on a bye. It doesn't matter. Does get a little bit of a tough matchup this week with Kansas City, which I want to say tough. Hell, I picked up Trevor Lawrence. I want to say tough matchup because Kansas City is just good, but I always forget that their defense is. Actually, I never know what their defense is. Sometimes they're just like incredible. And sometimes they have stretches where they're, the best defense in the league, and then sometimes they have stretches where they got to win every game 42-35. I don't know what the Chiefs defense is. So me and Wade both just taking flyers that they're the old Kansas City Chiefs defense and they just stink out loud. We'll see how that works out for both of us. The spread here from the website has got it as a 114-83. that's with Jacoby Myers missing the flex spot. So if we go ahead and slot in, say, well, it's actually not going to change much because we have Latavius Murray and Chuba Hubbard as the other options. Unless Eli Mitchell can come back, and then that's, second fiddle to Christian McCaffrey. So we'll call it 90, maybe 86, 87 as far as the projections go. Either way, Riley catches Wade at the right time. Riley moves to 9-1, and we'll have to wait until somebody else can come along to take down Riley because it's not happening this week. This video brought to you by Diet Coke. Going over to our second and third place teams, actually. Big matchup here as far as seeding goes. Not really, because seeds 2 and 3 play each other anyway, and neither one of them are catching Riley, so it doesn't really matter. But we do have Charlie versus Cameron. Charlie picking up and starting Daniel Jones with Joe Burrow on a bye this week. I actually love it. Daniel Jones is playing Houston. I had to stream him in a different league. I think it was the week that he put up. Yeah, it was the week he played Jacksonville. And he had 107 yards rushing, and then 202 more through the air, put up 28 points. I did also, just to call myself out, I started in the next week against Seattle when he had 176 yards and 20 yards rushing. So it's not all sunshine and roses. I mean, Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. He is what he is. You got the rushing upside, which we all love in a quarterback. So I don't hate the move. Houston's defense is not great. Obviously, Derek Stingley's really good. Their pass defense is actually pretty solid, but Daniel Jones can run and get some points with his legs too, so you don't have to rely on that a whole bunch. Patrick Mahomes. He's Patrick fucking Mahomes. He has 2 games over 30 points. He has 3 games over 25 points. Doesn't have a game under 17. He just throws. I mean, they throw the ball. They get Jacksonville this week, who, that's a great matchup for them. Talked about Jacksonville on the other side getting a pretty not great secondary from Kansas City, and it's not like Jacksonville has a great secondary either. We could actually see some points in this game. Just depends on which version of Trevor Lawrence shows up. So take that for what it's worth. Do we get all-time great prospect Trevor Lawrence? Or do we get, Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence? So a lot of points should be scored in that game, and even if the Jags can't keep up, Patrick Mahomes is going to dice them up all day because that's what he does. Alvin Kamara against the Steelers should be an absolute just bloodbath, I believe. So he kind of cooled off last week. He had a couple weeks. He went 20, 15, 14. None of those weeks did he score a touchdown. We talked about it at length. He had not had a touchdown all year. And then he scored 3 and put up 38.3 points. The Steelers defense is not good. I don't know if TJ Watt's coming back this week. So if TJ Watt comes back, that could hinder him a little bit. TJ Watt just changes that entire defense. So we'll see what Pittsburgh decides there. But either way, we should get a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara. Yeah, he catches passes, he runs the ball, he does everything. He is the New Orleans Saints offense. With Michael Thomas being out, Jarvis Landry being out all year, Chris Olave looks really good. But he's still a rookie, and you can't really rely on him to kind of push your offense through. And that's what Alvin Kamara has been doing. So he should eat up. Saquon Barkley, oh my God, Saquon Barkley against the Texans. Holy shit. So everything I said about Daniel Jones, throw that out of the window, because I forgot Saquon Barkley is on the Giants as well. And he may rush for 250 yards. Holy shit. Charlie, I'm so sorry. On the flip side, going over to Charlie, God, I think Cameron and Charlie's running backs may combine for 100 points by themselves, 120 points. I mean, they're going to combine for a lot. Derrick Henry gets the Lions. Nick Chubb gets the Dolphins. Alvin Kamara gets the Steelers. And Saquon Barkley gets the Texans. So I don't really care what anybody else on these teams do. That's where it's won right there. I mean, Amari Cooper also gets the Dolphins. They've been in just shootouts left and right. Amon-Ra St. Brown gets the Bears. Stephon Diggs gets the Vikings. The only semi tough matchup is Tyler Lockett against the Bucks. George Kittle against the Chargers. Their defense stinks. Pat Freiermuth against the Saints. Their defense kind of stinks. Christian Kirk against Kansas City. Leonard Fournette against Seattle, who sneakily has gotten a good defense the past couple weeks. So this could be just combined one of the higher scoring games we've seen all season. Projections have it at 119 for Cameron, which is one of the higher projections I've seen. That's Riley style projections. 119. I mean, they've got Mahomes projected 22, Kamara at 17, Saquon at 17. I mean, and even Charlie's team, I mean, 16, 16, 13 for Nick Chubb, I think is kind of criminal against the Dolphins. Amari Cooper at 13. That's about right. Amon-Ra should just light up the Bears. They only have him at 11. This is a really tough matchup to predict. I think my gut is leaning towards Cameron just because of what Saquon is going to do to the Texans. Like, it may be I forgot Tyler Lockett plays at 9:30 in the Germany game. That's a little tough. But either way, I think officially on the record here, I'm gonna have to go with Cameron. Just because of what Saquon's gonna do to the Texans. I mean, it's gonna be just disgusting. Stephon Diggs should light up the Vikings. It's a revenge game. Honestly, whether Case Keenum or Josh Allen is playing, Stephon Diggs should just go bonkers. So that's my prediction. I'm gonna go with Cameron on this one. Really, really close. I think really high scoring. I mean, just an absolute shootout. But I think Cameron pulls it out in the end. Gross. So yeah, there we go. I think Cameron gets the dub here. And honestly, I mean, that would launch him into second place. That would kind of put Charlie on his heels a little bit. I still think he's going to be fine. I think he has a playoff spot all but locked down. But, you know, it would kind of make the last 3 weeks here. I'm almost just vomited. That would make the last 3 weeks a little more interesting. God. Oh, okay. Anyway, that's your 2 and 3 matchup. Jumping over to your 4th place, which is me. Hey. Jumping over to 4th place. This is the second in the doubleheader against Ashley. Which is one of the weirdest scheduling quirks I've ever seen, but what are you gonna do? You play who you play. So we hit on a couple quarterbacks here, and the reason they came to mind is obviously they're involved in my matchup. So sorry, I talk about them more. Kyler Murray announced today that he has a hamstring issue and was a non-participant in Wednesday's walkthrough. So that's really cool that he may not play. So you know, I picked up Trevor Lawrence just in case. Honestly, at this point, like Kyler Murray, I've watched every Cardinals game. I've watched. I mean, you know, through Red Zone, so I haven't watched every snap, but I have watched most of every Cardinals game this year. Most of the drives the Cardinals have had, and at no point has Kyler Murray looked good or looked fun or looked interesting to watch. Yeah, he's your QB6 on the season. And you know, he's really only got 2, maybe 3 bad games. 13, 16, 14. Those were his bad games. I mean, he had 17, which I would consider a little below average, but it's not bad. Last week he had 19. I mean, and it's the rushing yards. We know why he gets it. You know, even in the week that he had 14 points, he had 100 yards on the ground. That's the only reason he had 14 points. Holy shit. Is that for real? 14. So he's got 10 points from rushing yards alone. He lost a fumble, threw an interception, and then threw for he somehow only scored 14 points while rushing for 100 yards. That is insane. Anyway, he gets a tough matchup with the Rams. You know, the Rams stink, but their defense is still good. That's my analysis of the Rams. You know, I think they've played already this season. They have, and that was the week that he had 13. So honestly, I'm probably going to talk myself into starting Trevor Lawrence anyway. But Kyler Murray, the upside is just too much, and that's what I'm gonna hang my hat on. On the other side, Matt Stafford just randomly today, it came out that he had a concussion. Sean McVay revealed Wednesday that Stafford was put in the concussion protocol Tuesday based on his discussion with team physicians in the aftermath of a loss to the Bucs this past Sunday. If he hasn't cleared, yeah, we get John Wolford. So that's just weird that, you know, none of that came out during the post game or anything like that. But it's weird that Matt Stafford might not play. If he does play, which he is playing Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, so they're great. I just get to watch them battle it out. This may be could be a bounce back week for Matt Stafford. I mean, the Cardinals defense is not good. Going back to also the week that they played in week 3, he had 249 yards and 2 rushing yards. He had 10.16 points. That game stunk. Holy shit. What a fucking shit show. I don't even remember that game. I know I watched it, but I was at work that week. That was the one week I missed. Yeah, that game fucking stunk. Anyway, so if Matt Stafford misses with a concussion, we have Tom Brady at 9:30 a.m. in Germany. Olds don't do well with time change, so that should be interesting to keep an eye on. So, and once again, going back to them playing the Seahawks, sneaky good defense, actually. James Conner returned from his injury last week. Didn't have a great showing. 55 yards, 8 more through the air. Wait, am I reading? Sorry, 45 yards, 19 through the air, 8.9 points. He only has 1 game over 10 points this season. It was actually in week 1 when he scored a touchdown. Hasn't rushed for more than 55 yards. In fact, he's hit 55 on the nose twice. But in the week 4 and week 5, right before his injury. Benjamin has looked pretty explosive, so I sounds like that's probably still a committee. Connor saw 12 touches, Benjamin's 5, but yeah, Kyler Murray was the leading rusher in that game. And I think he only had like 30, 40 yards. Oh, he had 60. Never mind. So, it's a committee. James Conner last year had the touchdown upside all year. But we just have not seen it this year. And I mean, a lot of that has to do with the Cardinals just aren't scoring like they should be. So if the Cardinals can get back to form, which I don't have any faith that they will, as a Kyler Murray watcher, it's awful to watch. And I'm sorry to anybody else has to watch Cardinals games. Actually, this is my olive branch to you that I'm sorry that both of us have had to pay attention to the Cardinals this year. And David Montgomery is a lot of the same story. Obviously, he hasn't had the injury that James Conner had. He did miss a week. Kind of had some limited days here and there with Khalil Herbert kind of taking over, but that's also part of the problem that James Conner has had, with Benjamin. Khalil Herbert, every time he touches the ball, just looks better. So, the Bears are still kind of committed to running the ball. The other thing is much like Connor and Benjamin, Justin Fields has become their leading rusher. I mean, he's the guy. So, whenever they want to run, it's Justin Fields who's looked the most explosive. A lot of design runs, a lot of scrambles. So David Montgomery also kind of touchdown dependent. Jumping over to my running backs, I love Cordero Patterson this week. I loved him last week, and kind of coming back, and he not a lot of yardage. I mean, only had 44 rushing yards, and he caught a pass for 9 yards, but 2 touchdowns. He's the goal line back. They kind of have a semi 3-headed committee with Algier and Huntley. It's hard to say how much of that was due to trying to ease Cordero Patterson back into the game before letting him take over like a full workhorse role, or if they just love what they saw out of those two. I don't know, because I haven't paid attention to the Falcons until I had Cordero Patterson. And the one week I went to their game where that's the one he got hurt. So my fault. But it did get him on my team. So whatever. He gets the Panthers here, who just got hit for 5 touchdowns by Joe Mixon. So I don't know if I would assume that's good for me, just because their rush defense. The Panthers look like they're the Panthers that we thought they would be. The interim bump is gone. The fun with PJ Walker is over. Baker Mayfield got into the game. So Thursday night, I mean, God, the Panthers and Falcons. I'm gonna watch it because of Patterson, but that's the only reason. Nobody else should ever watch this game. So anyway, I love Cordero Patterson this week. Jonathan Taylor. I honestly, he was limited at practice today. We don't know if he's gonna go. He missed last week. At the end of the Commanders game, he kind of tweaked his ankle. Was having an okay day before that, and he had 76 yards. I don't even know how many rushing attempts he had. See if I can find it. 16 rushes for 76 yards. So it's not horrible production, but definitely not what we've love from Jonathan Taylor. Um, his one full healthy week against the Titans, he put up 12 points, 58 yards running, 27 through the air. The Raiders defense is so bad that if he goes, I'll probably have to play him. If not, I'll slot in Jamal Williams, who also gets a pretty bad defense. But I love Jonathan Taylor. I'll love him forever, but he's just been a pain in my ass this year. And a pain in a lot of people's ass. Getting into the wide receivers, we actually have, and you got to look down the flex spot for this, but we have another double dip with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, which normally I would love going against somebody who's double dipping, but they're playing the Chargers. And the Chargers secondary is better than their run defense. But they're still not great. They're not exactly locked down. So that does scare me. The thing that doesn't scare me is Christian McCaffrey is taking a lot of Deebo Samuel's rushing attempts. We hope. I don't think we've seen him play a game, but that's just together. But that's just kind of assuming what we're going to see out of them. And honestly, a lot of passing down work. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is just touching the ball every play he can. Which scares me a little bit more for Brandon Ayuk because I think it opens things up for him, but I think it takes a lot of Deebo Samuel's utility away. So, once again, like I said, we haven't seen all three of them in a game together, so it's really hard to predict what's actually going to happen there. But them playing the Chargers, who love to give up points and love to give up weird plays, does terrify me. And then nothing terrifies me more than Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is the scariest player on Ashley's team. We've seen him at any point, he could go for 2 touchdowns and 150 yards plus. It's a lot of the same with Tyreek Hill over on Trevor's team. It just at any point he could just drop nukes in your face. So that terrifies me. And he gets Cleveland, which is kind of middle of the road as far as defense goes. They're giving up a lot of points, maybe not a lot of passing yards, but a lot of points. So this is where Ashley scares me because on the other side, Brandon Cooks, who I haven't even decided if I'm going to play him yet. Rondell Moore maybe gets the nod. I guess it really depends on if Kyler can go or not. And honestly, if Rondell Moore can go or not, because he's questionable too. Had some practice issues. I think he's been hurt, kind of nursing an injury most of the year. Obviously, Mike Williams is still out. Will be for probably another at least 2 weeks or so. Yeah, Brandon Staley says he's more week to week. May have a shot for next week against Kansas City. But probably going to be week 12 against Arizona. I like that a lot. Anyway, the moral of the story there is Mike Williams is not going to play this week. Getting into the flexes, I talked about Ayuk, and the 49ers offense. Miles Sanders gets the Commanders on Monday night, and him and Terry McLaurin are gonna do a lot to decide how my week is going. I did say last week that if I lose on aggregate, that I would take over the Ashley's bitch mantle from Wade. So the difference right now is 4 point. What's the math on that? It's 4.5 points. God. So if I lose, it's got to be by a margin of less than 4, and according to ESPN, that margin is going to be about 5.4. Sorry, 6.4. The math. But much like every week, I'm not going to predict myself to lose. So, we might as well just go ahead and predict myself to win. So, I saved myself from Ashley's bitch. I'm really scared. I'm super scared. Jumping into the next matchup, we have Andrew versus Trevor. Andrew is kind of scary, but only because Joe Mixon just dropped 5 touchdowns in John's face. So which jumped him up to RB2 on the season. I don't know what he was before that. I would assume probably around 5 or 6, maybe. That sounds right. Jumped him up all the way to RB2, 53 points. Honestly, he might have been below that because he hadn't had a game over 20 points until that happened. He had 18, 10, 14, and 16. Everything else was below 10, and a couple that were, in the fives. And then 53, 153 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, 58 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So very Jonathan Taylor, very Alvin Kamara, very Doug Martin. 53 points just out of nowhere in your jaw. But he's not playing this week, so none of that matters. Kenyon Drake's on a bye, Tyler Boyd's on a bye, Damian Harris on a bye, Nick Folk on a bye, Kyron Williams is still on IR, Jameson Williams still on IR, Trevor using that IR slot. Jumping into the quarterbacks, we have the Bama Bowl. Jalen Hurts gets the Commanders on Monday night, which yikes, that's scary. I just talked about Miles Sanders and what he could do to the Commanders. Actually, I don't even think I really talked about him. Just as a kind of a last ditch effort, but the Commanders stink. Taylor Heineke's fun. Hopefully there's just a lot of points in that game, just kind of some fuck shittery. So that should be interesting. But Jalen Hurts is probably the most, I would say, consistent player in fantasy right now. Outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes, which is, I just talked about. Even your guys, Josh Allen's had a couple stinkers here and there. Kyler Murray's had some stinkers. We talked about fucking who else? Anyway, most quarterbacks have at least a game where you can point to and be like, wow, they stunk. Jalen Hurts' lowest point total was 15.96. And a lot like why Kyler Murray is QB6, right behind Jalen Hurts, the rushing yards. 90, 57, 20, 38, 61, 27. He had 10 against Pittsburgh in week 8. That's because he threw 3 touchdowns to AJ Brown. And then 23 in week 9 against Houston, where why would you run your quarterback? Anyway, on the other side we have Tua, who doesn't have the consistency that Jalen's had, but Jesus Christ, the upside. The big 40-point week in week 2, where he had 470 yards and 6 touchdowns. The two back-to-back weeks, he's gone 29 and 24. 382 and 3 touchdowns, 302 and 3 touchdowns. Why is this point total so much higher here? Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense. Never mind. Yep, 3 extra points for passing, and he had 19 yards on the ground. That makes sense. All right, sorry, I had to do some math there. We know what the upside is. If he comes out and can carve them up, great. If he can stay healthy, great. The only week where he was fully healthy that he kind of stunk was week 1 against the Patriots. He had 270 and a touchdown. The next week was the 40-point week. Then we had the initial concussion against Buffalo. Then the terrifying concussion against Cincinnati. Missed a couple weeks. Then came back, had a 16 points in week 7, kind of getting back into the groove. And then he's gone 29-24. Which kind of, it's pretty nice when you can just throw the ball 5 yards to Tyreek Hill and let him go. Or throw the ball 30 yards, even though he's 40 yards downfield. So Tua just benefiting from all the weapons in the world. Trevor gets Josh Jacobs back. I say back. For some reason, I thought he was on a bye last week. It's probably just because he hasn't really done a whole lot in the last 2 weeks. There was a 3-week stretch there where he was just, 2, 1, and 3 touchdowns. It's got to come back down to earth a little bit. But he gets an Indy defense that is just, basically the whole Indianapolis team is just not good. The Colts defense for some reason isn't good, even though they're supposed to be good. They're not good. So kind of expect a bounce back here for the Raiders as a whole, which, is good for Devontae Adams. Secondary is okay for the Colts, but with the offense being as bad as it is for the Colts, I just expect a lot of opportunities, a lot of time of possession, a lot of clock for the Raiders, which just spells more touches, especially towards the end of the game for Josh Jacobs. So kind of expect both of them to do some pretty big things there. Kenneth Walker gets what was kind of still thought of as a good rush defense for Tampa Bay, but they're kind of not. They kind of just low-key stink. Which Tampa Bay stinking isn't low-key, but their defense not being great is pretty low-key. So, and Kenneth Walker is just a stud. He should win Rookie of the Year. Should have been Breece Hall. I guess Dameon Pierce probably should win it. I don't know. You can pick any one of those 3 except for Breece Hall, because rest in peace, but he obviously would have been in the mix. if he had stayed healthy. Looking at the running backs for Andrew, Tony P. He has exactly 1 week where he was the full workhorse back, and he ran for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they're going to give the ball to Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think they should. Tony Pollard looks a lot better, a lot more explosive. So he should get the ball. He should be the bell cow right now. We'll see how that plays out. Green Bay, not a great defense. Tony Pollard. Oh, sorry, I just talked about Tony Pollard. Fuck. Najee Harris. Yeah. People have been clowning on Jonathan Taylor for being one of the worst number 1 overall picks in recent memory, which I don't agree with. Christian McCaffrey missed 2 full seasons. Saquon Barkley missed basically 2 full seasons. So I don't agree with that. Najee Harris, maybe the worst first round pick who hasn't gotten hurt of all time. Now Andrew didn't draft him in the first round. He traded James Robinson for him, which I guess you could argue is a upgrade. But kind of in the same boat as a lot of people right now, getting just bye fucked. I mean, you have Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, Damian Harris, all on bye, so it's not like you have another option, and you would probably start him out with Damian Harris anyway. Najee does get New Orleans. I don't know what New Orleans is, honestly. I mean, not the Steelers. I don't think it really matters who they play. Even against Miami, even against Cleveland, even against New England, you know, some kind of bottom of the league rush defenses. He's yet to break 12 points this season. He had 11.9 in week 6, which was the closest he came, and he had 11.4 and 11.6 against Cleveland. He just, between 8 and 11 points is just, that's where he lives. That's how you can honestly just go ahead and pencil in 11, and if you that's it. And that's the absolute ceiling. So, you know, if you can beat 11, you're good. You're chilling. You know, he played Buffalo and the Jets, who have really, really good, you know, top of the league defenses, and that's the week that he struggled. 5.1, 7.4. Last week against Philly, pretty decent defense, 8.96. So I just don't expect anything from Najee this week or any week ever. Adam Thielen and Gabe Davis, Jesus Christ, versus Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. I don't know how much of that I really need to break down for you. Just gonna put those names out there and let them rest where they may. So yeah, I don't know. You don't need to break down on those matchups. Adam Thielen, Gabe Davis. Where Andrew does have the clear advantage. Obviously, he has an advantage over everyone in the slot is tight end because he's got Travis Kelce, who is dominating the league. It's Jacksonville, so he's gonna just put up points. Zach Ertz is kind of sneakily Kyler Murray's favorite target. His second favorite target over DeAndre. But it feels like every time he throws a pass more than 10 or 11 yards, if it's less than 5 yards, it's Rondale Moore. If it's more than 10 yards, it's Zach Ertz. If it's more than like 15 yards, it's D-Hop. If it's in the end zone, it's D-Hop. So Zach Ertz, just a really, really solid tight end. Number 3 tight end this year. Kyler Murray loves him, and it's probably because he's same reason he loves DeAndre. He's just real tall, and Kyler Murray can actually see him. That's why Rondale Moore only gets catches inside of 5 yards, because you can't see him downfield. And then the flex kind of finished up here. Chase Claypool in for Trevor. Finally kind of getting fully implemented into hopefully getting fully implemented into the Bears offense. And against a really good matchup with Detroit. Justin Fields coming along. Justin Fields still doesn't throw the ball a whole lot. I mean, last week when he put up 40 points, he had 123 yards passing or something ridiculous like that. So I don't know if the upside is there for Chase Claypool. There's really just not a lot of other passing options in Chicago. So, and then DJ Moore, he's really good. Panthers aren't. So there's that. I mean, he had the awesome, just fucking sick game against Atlanta. But that's really all he's done this season. So as far as a prediction here, I think it's pretty clear. I'm going to go with Trevor. I still like him to win out. The game against Raleigh is going to be really fun. I don't know if he has enough games left on the table to make the playoffs. I've said that. But, you know, if things keep going like they're going, you know, Trevor's 7-6 with some wins over some people ahead of him. So I guess it could work. Or oh, actually, am I gonna pick? Yes, Andrew won last week, which means he's gonna lose this week. So perfect. Trevor wins. That's actually the only breakdown we needed. I don't even know why I talked about the players because Andrew just win loss win loss win loss. It went. So actually, I'm just gonna tell you Andrew's record. So win loss win loss win loss win loss win loss win loss win. It'll be 7-6. A lot of you math nerds out there will try to figure out why I had to count that, even though it's odd numbers. So obviously, he's gonna have more and more win than loss. And to those people, I would say go fuck yourself. Our last matchup here. John, kind of in the same boat as Trevor. John does have the luxury of he gets to play myself, I believe Wade and Andrew. Wait, no, he just lost to Andrew. So that kind of blows. But at 3-6, still kind of in the playoff hunt, pretty much has to win out. And very much can win out. But has to have it and kind of has to have some things go his way to, you know, alleviate some of that. Tim firmly just right back in the mix here. He does have losses against myself and Andrew, I know for sure. He lost to Andrew in week 1, and then, you know, I know my record. I beat him. I don't know if he's played Wade or if he has beat Wade, and it actually, well, he's definitely played Wade because I think everybody's played everyone at this point. So let's actually go take a look at that real quick because that's interesting to me. You know, I don't want this video to be too short. He played Wade in week 9 and he beat him. So, that's, you know, he's right in the thick of things. You know, once everybody kind of starts getting tied up with the records, at some point I'll make a spreadsheet, you know, probably closer to week 12 or week 13 about what exactly everyone needs to get into the playoffs. Oh, and actually, I believe hold on, I'm trying to do math. Everybody calm down. Everybody chill out. I believe Ashley has been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. There we go. We have our first mathematical elimination. She's 1-8. I guess everybody could lose, but they can't. So yes, first mathematical elimination from the playoffs. Like I said, at some point I'll have a spreadsheet to go over playoff scenarios, head-to-heads, fun stuff like that. Anyway, sorry to just derail the Tim versus John conversation, but two teams. I mean, this is kind of loser leaves town. You know, Tim loses 4-7 is pretty hard to come back from. Through, honestly, sorry, 4-6. So kind of loser leaves town. I think the winner of this one, you know, is kind of cements himself in the playoff hunt, and the loser has a real uphill battle to climb. So getting into the actual players, we talked about Josh Allen being questionable. He's got the UCL, baseball. He's baseball injury. He's still day to day, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Even if he plays, you know, is he going to be 100%? Minnesota does not have a great secondary, so it should be, if he can play, even if he's not 100%, it should be the usual Josh Allen. He's coming off of 2 down weeks, and those down weeks are 17 and 24. He's just had 2 interceptions. He just has the same thing as Kyler and Jalen, and honestly even Mahomes at this point. There's just so much rushing upside. He's the team's leading rusher. He had 86 yards on the ground against the Jets last week, in a loss to the Jets. But you know, Josh Allen's Josh Allen. If he can't play, I don't know what Tim's gonna do because he just traded Tua away. And I don't even know who he got for him actually. Oh, Garrett Wilson. There he is. Geno Smith is just fucking balling. QB8 on the season, just like we all predicted. Coming off another 20-point performance last week against the Cardinals. That is his third this year, which honestly is more than a lot of people can say. And he gets Tampa Bay, who can get after the quarterback, and Geno Smith does take a lot of sacks. So, maybe that disrupts something there, but I haven't seen anything from Geno that says, getting hit, getting knocked on the ground is going to just dissuade him in any way. The only knock I have on him this week is that game's in Germany. It just, super early. So, I hate having players in Germany that aren't, kickers and defenses. So yeah, getting into the running backs here, kind of a heavyweight just bout. Dalvin Cook, not so much. Dalvin Cook kind of the odd man out here. Not that Dalvin Cook's bad. He's just kind of not what the rest of these running backs are. At least not right now, and he has a really tough matchup with Buffalo. Austin Eckler has been incredible. He's your RB1 right now. In terms of points, and Chubb and Henry are kind of taking over in rushing yards, but the dude has just been a touchdown machine. He's had at least one touchdown in every game since week 4. And he's had multiple touchdowns in, 4 of those weeks. So week 6 against Denver was the only one that he had one touchdown, and I believe that was the only touchdown that the Chargers scored in that game. So yeah, just an absolute tear. He does get the number 1 rush defense in the league right now in San Francisco. So let's see if they can slow him down a little bit. But what Austin Eckler doesn't come on the ground, so I don't think it's going to affect him too much. And there's just, Keenan Allen's still out, Mike Williams is still out. Their wide receiver 1 is Josh Palmer, so we'll see what happens. I still think Austin Eckler is due for big things, just off the receiving potential alone. On the other side, Christian McCaffrey, in the same game actually. So 2 just elite running backs playing against each other. Christian McCaffrey has played 2 games as a 49er. On 3 days' notice, he had 38 yards and 24 more receiving. With a full, 10 days to figure out the playbook. 94 yards on the ground, 55 through the air. How many receptions was that? 8 receptions on 9 targets. He got targeted 9 times and scored 2 touchdowns. Kyle Shanahan is creaming himself over Christian McCaffrey, and I think we all are. He looks sick in the jersey. The offense looks sick. Honestly, I think he could put up 40 points just for the rest of his life, as long as he can stay healthy, and he gets the Chargers of all teams. So, honestly, Christian McCaffrey might win this game by himself. Luckily for John, he doesn't have to, because he also has Travis Etienne playing against just a not great Kansas City front. So last week, 28 rushes, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Since taking over as a full-time starter, when was that? Against Denver, I think, was the first week where James Robinson was gone. If you want to even go the week before that, when he kind of became the true bell cow. Over 100 rushing yards in every game, at least 1 touchdown in those 3 games. And he had 2 last week against the Raiders. 18, 23, and 25 points in order there. So don't expect that to slow down, especially against Kansas City, who's just, once again, not a great defense. Juju Smith-Schuster, just kind of a fly on the wall pick there. 19, 21, and 14 points. So he's kind of he's kind of just found his way into the offense a little bit. Mahomes is kind of playing out of his mind, so that helps a little bit. But he also gets the Jacksonville game. A lot of Jacksonville versus Kansas City going on here. So that's just always fun. CeeDee Lamb, who Tim got in a trade for myself. The one game that he's had him, he had 77 yards and a touchdown. And that's just kind of what CeeDee Lamb's been all year. If the touchdowns were more consistent, I probably would have kept him. Doesn't have a game over 100 yards yet. But Dak looks like he's settling back in. They get a big game up in Green Bay. I'm sure Mike McCarthy is going to do some wild shit in a revenge game, but Mike McCarthy, so what is wild shit? A fucking Twinkie, fat fuck. Anyway, so CeeDee Lamb's stat line probably going to be around 70 to 98 yards or so. Maybe he breaks 100. Maybe he has a breakout game. But the upside there is the touchdown. Going over to John. AJ Brown. AJ Brown coming off, 2 weeks removed from his 156 yard and 3 touchdown game. Or I believe he had what, like, it wasn't even that many receptions. 6 receptions for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not quite a Randy Moss stat line, but pretty close. And then last week, he found the end zone again. 3 games in a row, he's found the end zone. So, he's Jalen Hurts' favorite target. And Jalen Hurts doesn't throw all that much. So when he throws to AJ Brown. The Commanders, that defense is real bad. So, fucking Sam Ellinger almost beat him. Should have beat him. We had some Taylor Heineke shit down the stretch that prevented that from happening. But he's gonna absolutely just torch the Commanders defense this week. And then Olave just kind of been a reception machine. Gets a lot of targets, gets a lot of throws his way, just because there's no other real options in New Orleans right now, with Michael Thomas finally going to injured reserve, being shut down for the season. Jarvis Landry hasn't been there, so it's pretty much Olave and Kamara, the only ones. So 6 receptions, 71 yards the last game. Like I said, in a PPR format, he's getting a lot of targets, he's getting a lot of receptions. And if the Saints score, it's either going to be him or it's going to be Kamara, so might as well have one of them. And then last up, I could touch on the tight ends here. Tim did pick up Dalton Schultz. I discussed that. I had him for a while, ended up dropping him. I think I started him 1 week. Anyway, Taysom Hill, just a fun play. Last week he had a full 6 yards rushing. I think he did complete a pass. Failed to haul on his lone target. He completed 1 pass for 13 yards. So that's where a little bit of those points are coming from. So if he gets in the game, it's fun, it's exciting. I don't really see the 3 touchdown game happening again anytime soon, but he's playing Pittsburgh, so you're gonna play defense bad enough to do some weird shit. Might as well be Pittsburgh, right? And then Greg Dulcich, we touched on him. John just can't quit the Broncos, so this is actually John's intervention for the Denver Broncos. We all love you. You don't have to keep doing this. Okay. Dameon Pierce is awesome. I touched on him talking about when I kind of went on a rant about Rookie of the Year. He is limited, kind of dealing with some stuff. It's probably just because he's carried the ball like 700 times in the last 5 weeks. So I assume he probably just wants some rest. Every time he runs, it's fucking electric. He's coming off 140 yards against a really good Eagles defense. And he gets a Giants defense, which is still pretty good too. So, but it really hasn't slowed him down. I mean, the worst week he's had since taking over in week 3 was week 8 against Tennessee. Had 13.7 points. I mean, you could say production wise. Oh, sorry, no. Week 8 against Tennessee was 12.6. We had 35 yards, 16 through the air. Saved it with a touchdown at the end. Dameon Pierce is awesome. He's explosive. He runs people over. It's sick to watch. I love it. As far as predicting a winner here, I still have to go with John. He lost last week, but he just kind of stepped in front of a freight train that is Andrew after a loss, and instead of getting him after a win, like the smart people did, beat him. So John takes it here. So just to run through recap: Raleigh taking down Wade, Cameron taking down Charlie, myself beating Ashley, Trevor beating Andrew, and then we have John taking down Tim. So that is your week 10 preview. Good luck to everybody this week, and let's have a great time. All right, see you.